All right, aloha.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. It is the evening, B.
Yes,
And
our second evening podcast at the RiFF Wailuku.
how does it feel?
I feel good, man.
Yeah, it feels.
You look good. You look healthy and up and ready. And
Well, I slept all day.
well, we're gonna sleep again because look at this incredible food that we're gonna have shortly. But introduce, you have the honors.
Salony Setya, welcome to the RiFF show.
Welcome, aloha.
Thank you very much, and we're so excited to have you here. I know B was talking to you earlier in the week, and he spoke very highly of you, saying, I've got somebody who's going to be on the show, and it's going to be so much fun. So,
and what a way to end the year. You know, we had the other week, last week we had the Kohia's cooking, and before that we had a musician. So there's a lot of diverse people that's been coming on our show. And to close the year off, to have you through friends of mine, and now you're our friends. And now the world is going to hear about what you've been up to, all your adult life, and your whole thing on helping people. So yeah, you have the stage, and can't wait to ask you questions.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you both for having me here. I'm excited. This is my second podcast.
Right, second.
So, and from what Brian, you've told me about the podcast about just creating awareness, and even just meeting different people from different walks of life. I think it's great what you guys are doing. So thank you for having me. Is this mic okay?
yeah,
Okay.
you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. You're very photogenic.
Thank you.
Brian would say phonogenic.
That's a local way. I minus the T, put the N as a. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so Brian didn't really kind of fill me into your wonderful conversation, but he did. After talking to me, I could see the impact that you had in your during your conversation. Could you maybe fill me in, and as well as our listeners, on what is kind of
what the conversation was about? Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So, what's interesting is, throughout the whole time, I think both our hearts were very open when we were talking. So very open to what the other was saying. And I felt like a lot of stuff, Brian, you were bringing up, and we were kind of just bouncing back on concepts of love and awareness, really going towards that. And our, the things that get in the way of that is our personality, built of a lot of fears and protectors and beautiful things as well. So that's really kind of like the gist of what we're talking about. It was fun.
Okay. And then how are you going about going around the world, traveling and helping people, in that concept of bringing awareness, or are you kind of like coaching them in a sense, or just what is it that you
do?
Do and inspired to do, and passionate about?
So I've been in the field of psychotherapy for the past 15 years. And I went through different layers in terms of different ways of practicing, and currently I'm practicing a very integrative way. I use primarily two tools I use is Transpersonal Emdr, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
Oh, that sounds very technical. Wow. I mean,
it's really basic though, and and I hope to kind of make it very
easy to digest.
Yes, and some of the things, even in our conversation that Brian had talked about, it's like these things, there's certain things that we naturally kind of do, but we don't know that we're doing. And it's, the concept of resourcing, that's like the first concept, or the first layer of EMDR.
EMDR.
Yeah.
And I missed it the first time because you said it really fast. What does that stand for?
It's eye movement.
Eye movement. Okay.
Desensitization, reprocessing.
Oh, let me. Never heard of that before. I like the ring of EMDR.
Yeah.
That's a good heavy metal band name.
Well, it's a good anything name. It sounds very cool.
Oh yeah, it's like
eye movement desensitization,
Reprocessing.
Wow, something that I like it, man.
So in a sense, it has to do with the eyes, obviously.
Yeah, the piece of the eyes is really just while you're reprocessing certain information. It's originally created as a late state trauma treatment and widely used actually by veterans with trauma.
Okay.
And has gotten like significant results. And you're using the eye movements to get into there. It's kind of controversial in terms of exactly how it's affecting the brain, but there's some studies that show it's like integrating the right and left brain. There is the idea, really, I think it is that when you're in REM sleep, right? When you're going to bed, you're in sleep. Your eyes are going like this, and in your dream states, reprocessing information, or you're digesting information. So this helps support that process and integrate.
Okay. So what's the method or the goal in mind for this movement of the eyes to either help people that are suffering from certain kinds of trauma?
Yeah. So the idea is, while you're reprocessing the trauma, you're integrating the eye movement. So it's just it's an important part, but it's just one piece of the part. A lot of people actually use other things. They'll also use bilateral stimulation. So they'll use, tapping, like sometimes even the butterfly. Right now with COVID, we use it. It's all online. So obviously I can't tap them. Sometimes when I'm in person, I'll tap their knees while we're doing that as well, or whatever they're comfortable with. But sometimes clients, depending on the client, will want to maybe use their own arms, do something that they're comfortable with. And it's just the stimulation of, again, right and left that integrates, that's known. I'm not giving a great answer because it's not exactly known exactly how it works, but we know it works because of the studies.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me from the example that you mentioned, it's obviously a set of movements with and also with the therapist kind of helping you along.
They can be tapping, or they can do it themselves. Yep.
Right. So it's kind of like a trigger to get through this process and this exercise.
Yeah.
So basically, it's an exercise of sorts.
While you're either resourcing or reprocessing the trauma. So really, the meat of it is really resourcing and stimulating neural networks in the brain, which is basically like different experiences leave you with certain thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, images, right? Or the experience is made out of that. And if it's a fearful experience, the brain remembers, kind of like the negativity bias. If it has a negative experience, the brain will remember that experience really well. It's like plastered in your brain. It wants to avoid that, right? It's in survival mode. It fears that happening again. So other things like anything with the senses that replicate or remind them of that. So strong smells, taste, visualization, feeling, images, music, sounds, all of that remind them of the original trauma will actually bring their brain back to that original trauma. And a lot of times you might react towards that way.
Is that something that you want to reproduce in order then to start the healing?
Yes, depending on where the client's at, it's really meeting the client where they're at. So it's a lot of resourcing them. With the EMDR specifically, it might involve a lot of resourcing. If the brain is already so triggered, if they're already in a lot of anxiety, fight, flight, it's already triggered, or they're numbing, dissociating, we find out where they're at. Assess where they're at, help them get to a safe space. In fact, we use as a resourcing safe space. So just like with trauma, those past images and those negative images or memories, right? Even if I tell you when was the last time you had a bad day, right? And you think of that bad day, you might actually start, when you start kind of thinking about it, the same feelings might come up, the images, you might start, the same thoughts that you had in that space might come up.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing happens when you think of a positive experience, right? So if you start, if I ask you to think about the best day that you ever had, right? Or your favorite food, or your safe space.
Right.
Brian's pointing.
Yeah. So that's a lot. That's a lot of time spent with a person to get to a certain understanding of where they've been and what they've done, and
sometimes you can actually pick it up really fast.
Oh yeah.
In fact, because I know, especially because you do it all the time. Like our meeting with Brian, I was kind of noticing different parts in a loving way, I hope. But you, even within yourself, you start to notice because we have these parts too. It's also, so I'm not just fascinated by like people in trauma, but we've all had trauma, and even just our brain, the way that we've evolved, we have that negativity bias. We also come from survival. We're always worried about, even if we have safety and shelter, we're always like worried about losing safety or shelter.
Being attacked or unsafe.
And a lot of times in relationships, being attacked in relationships. And the way our brain actually works is like, it's a lion in front of you. Like, we're going to get attacked by a lion sometimes, but it's really just another human being, and they're just saying what they're saying. But it's so personal because it touches back on older wounds or, attachment wounds or something like that. So it's quite interesting how once you start noticing these parts of yourself, and that's really, so EMDR is one piece of it. I integrate it with IFS. It's called Internal Family Systems. And it
told me that.
Yeah. And it sounds very clinical, but it's also now used as a spiritual practice. It's used in coaching, like life coaching. So it has like various applications, and it's actually very, very traditional in nature. It's about soul consciousness, and it comes from a very spiritual space.
Can you expound on what soul consciousness is?
Yeah. It's really, in a nutshell, it's really a loving awareness, so
I like that, the loving awareness.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. That sounds like another title for an album or a song.
Yeah.
Loving awareness.
Yeah.
Okay,
with a G now, not with an N now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you don't mind, could you
talk more about that?
About loving awareness. I like that.
Yeah. So, when we look at our personality and different parts of our personality, the what we traditionally call positive or negative, when you really start breaking down to it, you start seeing that and hearing from these parts. Parts is also can be simultaneously used as, if you're kind of into neuroscience, is used as like neural networks in the brain. And, really energy, it's a certain sense of energy. And those parts, again, are certain behaviors, thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, connected also to images, right? Mm-hmm. And so the different parts of your personality take over at different times, right? There's certain times you're just so sweet, and like you look at a baby or you think about a baby, and you're just that loving awareness just comes automatically, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you had a bad experience with the baby.
Then the opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you might be really angry at a screaming baby, right? If it's a screaming baby, or, you put the baby on a plane and you think about a screaming baby, and now you can't sleep, and you have a meeting in the morning or whatever. And, poor morning. And now all of a sudden the brain's like angry, and those thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations come. And when you start getting to know those parts and why they feel the way that they feel directly, not from analyzing, or a lot of traditional therapy or talk therapy was a lot of analyzing, figuring out. We go directly working to this part of you. It's almost like a personality. Like, the idea is we all have sub-personalities. And so that part that comes out, that's the angry part that comes out. And once you get to know it and you see how it's just trying to protect itself and its fears from your own awareness, not just, it's very interesting. It's not just the attachment with the therapist. it's really, my goal is for the client to bring that loving awareness to parts, which is innate in all of us. It's that, once you start accessing, even with past traumas in different places, that loving awareness is always there once you start breaking it down. And this is shown in a lot of spiritual scriptures and spiritual places where, the quote that you're walking around the beach and or there's someone looking at their life, walking on the beach, and there's
question about
the
footsteps.
Wow, yes.
The footsteps one.
Great idea, great message.
Yeah. And there is somebody always observing. There's a loving awareness that was always there. And when you start connecting with your own soul consciousness, right? It's like that was always there. And it sounds voodoo, but when you actually experience it, it's lovely. Like you're like.
So is it spirituality, or it's not religious or religion, or now we get into this other element? I mean, it takes you deeper now.
Yeah. So the founder of IFS, Richard Shorts, he was again researching PhD, and he was working with eating disorders actually initially, and he found that certain techniques just weren't working, and somehow he stumbled upon this parts work approach, and he couldn't quite explain this soul consciousness that was arising during this process. And the more he researched, the more work he did, he started connecting to different cultures, and he didn't see this idea in the psychology world. He saw it more well explained in a lot of spiritual religious practices, and that's equated to soul. In Christianity, in Hinduism, it's the Atma, which is also soul. In a lot of the Vedic texts talks about the big S self, or Ramana Maharishi talks about the big S self. And in fact, in what how Richard Shorts describes it as a self energy, big S self energy. So you're bringing that to the parts of the trauma and bringing it to parts of your personality, just getting a deeper relationship with your own personality, even the parts of us that are looking good, the parts, and that's a protector, right? Because there's, parts that are, narcissistic parts that feel like they need to be a certain way or get constant acknowledgement and praise and all of this stuff, or else they feel worthless. Underneath all that is really unworthiness, right? So it's hard to go there directly because you don't want to go where the pain is. We cover the pain up with our with these different parts of our personality, so we don't have to deal with the feelings. And in other therapeutic modalities, that's like what we call primary emotions. So in other words, a secondary emotion might be if somebody makes fun of you or does something, right, or humiliates you, you might get angry and beat them up, right? So the anger is primary, but underneath that there might be deep shame, humiliation, right?
Sadness.
Sadness.
Yeah. So this loving awareness and this connection between kind of modern therapy and also spiritual practices, they're kind of coming like this.
Is this like a hybrid kind of thing, or has this been around for a long time? I mean, for people who really don't know, because
it's become more mainstream recently, I would say.
Right.
I did, as I was listening to different. I'm like a real nerd in this work, so I did a lot of trainings, whether online or in person, and it seems like at least the 70s or 80s. I think Richard Shorts I might be quoting it completely wrong. So I think it was like the 90s where he this became more prominent. So
is it
it's
safe?
been around.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been around, but I mean it's probably been around since the beginning of time.
Yes.
When you're talking about the whole thing about human beings and how they think and how they feel. And as far as a practice or someone being the therapist or the one helping, you're basically helping somebody understand how to. You talk about accessing
The
this.
self.
Yes. So a lot of people need help accessing, and because they can't for various reasons.
Well, look at
you know.
what's happening now with the COVID. I mean, you're talking all kind of different traumas, yeah. Rather be
Mental,
job,
yeah.
mental,
Yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
just stress with when it's going to be normal again. But it's so getting deep into is it like pre-Hindu or Vedic or what? As far as like getting into the really nitty gritty of this whole thing.
Yeah, actually, he, when going back to Richard Schwartz, he found it in every culture. And when I look at every religion and culture, I really see the union. It's all saying the same message, whether it's
no
this
matter if
way
it's
and that
Christian
way.
or whatever.
Or a lot of times, Brian, you referenced Rumi in our like every
or
time.
Eastern philosophy or Westernized.
There's a connection between every culture.
But she was stating that it's nothing like Eastern, or you're just kind of saying that
You can't put a
you can put a label.
You can't put a stamp on it because the world, like it's proven, right? Every culture has the same kind of ideas and concepts. It's just they call it they call it different things. And so once you start labeling things and giving it a name, that's where you run into problems. When you start naming, it's called this, and it's like, it's called this, and then. But
she put it gently.
Yeah,
she just called it love.
Yeah, and really, if most of the cultures understand the concept or the word LOVE, then it would make sense. But some cultures call it something else.
And really dropping to the heart. And so the concept becomes an ego, like an ego thing, right? So like that's beautifully said. We put labels on things, religion, and on ourselves, like this is Brian, and
this is Arlie,
this is Salony. So and this
Brian
is
going to dip on something right now because I'm looking across. Everybody's eating except Brian.
Now, but then, like you said, a lot of those things are for self-preservation, for identification,
Yes.
And it's important for certain tribes or people to have identification to know where their place is in the world. But
I really like how you said that. So it's beautiful.
I love this guy.
Yeah. Because it's so important to point out that
he's my best friend.
It's not rejecting what is, that each thing served a purpose. And it's just part of evolution. That labeling and that was part of our evolution, and we continue to grow beyond. We use things as tools. I think we use different things as tools. Even this we're using as a tool to transcend to greater and greater levels.
We're making the RiFF Wailuku. We're passionate about giving knowledge and mana'o, and we have an incredible person that's gonna, we're just sharing it, man. So that's awesome.
When did you start this journey, Salony? On I know this is a big part of your life. But how did you eventually get steered here, or were you raised in a family that was doing this already, or what did you do before? And were you an actual person that has like a testimony on how this helped you? Could you talk about?
So I believe we're all doing it, and and you guys talk in the way I hear you guys talk. So I feel like we're all on this journey. Mine has been interesting. So I was born in India. I came here when I was 6, and I was influenced a lot by one of my grandmothers. That was both my grandmothers, but spiritually speaking, my maternal grandmother was very, very spiritual, and I was telling Leela our friend Leela, this the other day. She taught me how to chant and very simply, even at I think I was in 2nd grade or something. She was coming to visit in the U.S. and I had a stomach ache and I couldn't sleep. And I was telling her I can't sleep and I'm not feeling good. And she goes, just say, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. And I kept that till as an adult. I still sometimes I can't meditate
that's
other
great.
ways.
Isn't that unreal?
Well, I mean that I like the idea of the child not feeling good, and the grandmother coming and doing this this sharing of this energy, and you feeling better, and now
and I just fell asleep. I knocked out.
It's kind of like Hawaiian. I mean, it's like but
all,
in their
all the
version.
cultures,
Yeah, all the cultures have
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So you came to America when you were 6 years old. Okay.
And then I grew up very Western, well, maybe a mix of Eastern Western, I guess, but also like my dad's side is very scientific. So you can kind of say and that's really, both have really influenced me, because what I'm doing now is integrating the science and the spirituality, the neuroscience.
I like that. I really like that. The spirituality and the scientific science.
Yeah.
And then what kind of education did you do?
So I always wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger for a long time, and my family was really happy. My sister's a doctor, very typical Indian culture brought, like she's a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, beautiful. And then I learned about how much research there is in like law degrees, and I was more I had a rebellious side in high school, so I was like, I like proving my. I know, I look so innocent. I definitely did. I liked proving my point, and I realized that's not what law is about. So then I switched to by default business major, because what else am I going to do? I just went into that line, and I was doing well. I was actually president and founder of Business Leaders of Tomorrow at my university. I enjoyed it, but I realized it was all about just making money. And there was a book I read, Siddhartha Gautama, in high school, and it was a required reading.
Okay, so stop right there. That book, you said that a couple of times, over the past couple of days that was talking. So is this a guru? Or just a master professor? Or?
It's actually supposedly the story of Buddha.
Okay.
Siddhartha Gautama, and that was his name. Siddhartha Gautama's real name. So it's a story of him. It's written by Herman Hesse, and it's not a heavy book. I think I was telling you that too.
Yeah, it's an easy read.
It's easy read. Yeah. And it's his journey from being very fixated on. I haven't read it since I was 16, 17.
And this came out in in the 50s, 70s?
Yeah, it's an old book. Yeah. I don't know when. I can't date it, but it's definitely before.
No, I'm sure Hollywood made movies out of this book, right?
I'm sure they made. You can probably see a lot of influence in it, where you see like people just being very attached to bodily pleasures, right? Physical and bodily pleasures. So you see him go through a journey of like the material world and having all this, and then, but he's not satisfied. This is not it. And he sees displeasure and the attachment of everything. And then it's his journey of transcending that and going beyond. So it's a great book.
That right there is,
I must have
stumbled
at least opened that book. Yeah. What's it called again?
Siddhartha Gautama by Herman Hesse.
Was there another?
Or Siddhartha, I think it's called just Siddhartha maybe, by Herman Hesse.
Okay, because I really like reading books, and that's where I even though I'm not college educated, that's where I get a lot of my my thoughts and ideas from reading. Yeah. And other cultures and books of that nature really make the mind kind of a little bit more in tune with what's going on.
But he loves wisdom. Yeah. He loves wisdom, and anything that's it's like chess. I mean, just exercises your brain to, learn something new, a new move. So this is like a whole new movement for us, and sharing this movement of thoughts and feelings and your background. It's big for most people in Hawaii, or people all over the world who's going to listen to this. That wow, I didn't know it was that book, or Buddha was named that before. We only know Buddha as Buddha. I can't say the word, so I don't want to mess it up. But yeah, so I think information like this is necessity.
Yeah. And I also want to say, like, there's so many beautiful Hawaiian practices too, right? That like
we're talking about Ho'oponopono.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's become really popular as a practice.
Yes,
People use, worldwide.
But everybody does that. Hiuvai, where you go and cleanse in the ocean or in the river. You submerge yourself in the
it's like
water.
a baptismal, yeah? Like a Catholic.
It's just like ridding yourself of piliki or trouble or worries.
New beginnings.
Where is that?
Oh, anywhere. You can go and jump in the ocean.
Yeah.
You can do it like in the sink, right? You could dip me, right? Right? I mean,
better in the nature, but
right. But we could put a green screen there. Technically, you put a green screen there. You can dip me in there.
If you wanted to do the Hollywood version,
right?
Well,
because I'm trying to.
Well, actually, this is a great. I want to kind of. This is actually a great point. You can actually create how beautiful the mind is, right? If you believe that it's going to work.
Sure.
And you bring your emotions. That's a lot of the resourcing with the EMDR and stuff. If you believe it, if you feel it, you can really resource those feelings of cleansingness and, all of that through even just your mind and imagining you're there.
That's why meditation is so strong, because, like, say if you lived in a place where there's terrible crime, incredible pollution, and even if you went outside, you would start to choke and gasp because of all the pollution. If you went in your apartment and you meditated, it would have to have some kind of ability to go to these places that we're, joking about a minute ago. But the ultimate is, for some reason, we're here on Maui. And one of the, a great place to...
A great vortex, man. It's powerful. Me and this guy, he's a vortex when I just look at him. But anyway, by the way, Salony, you can help yourself. We can eat and not be rude. Because
that's fun. Yeah.
So anyway...
wait, speaking of...
Yes.
So how did your journeys bring you to Maui?
This is a funny question. So I'm currently working remotely because of COVID. So it gave me the opportunity to really be able to travel. My clients are all in New Jersey. That's where I'm originally from. Okay. And so I was thinking about actually California and was actually planning really for California. I have friends and family in California. And the fires happened. So I actually don't know I love the ocean. I love the beach. I love the water. Love that it's, and I didn't even know what Hawaii would be like. I never came to Hawaii my whole life. But
your first time?
First time.
Oh, welcome.
And you can really, thank you. And you can really say I've just followed my intuition and my heart and ended up in Maui, where I didn't know a soul before.
And you love, and that's the main thing, right?
Okay,
Following my heart.
So
amazing. So,
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt real quick, my brother. Take that bite of that incredible bread. Okay, so this I want to put this on record in a sense. Remember when you was talking about the perception of like looking at your eye and ending up in nirvana? I want my brother Arlie to, and everybody.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of great food, but that's great information, and I really want to put that out to everybody.
What is this, like a little exercise or something?
No, it's not a push up or anything like that.
No, I mean like okay. No, I thought you were gonna share an exercise or something.
No. It's
visualization kind of practice.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first, I'll create a little context for it. So we talked about like these are the different planes, we'll say, of consciousness, right? And there's one that we're in the psychology of who we are, right? Like we are the personality, and Brian does what Brian does, and Arlie does what Arlie does, and Salony Salony talks the way she talks, and so this is our personality, right? And most of the time we're kind of very absorbed in that, right? Survival and our personalities and different personalities, like a soap opera, right? And then there is this other plane that we talked about, which is actually, something I read, Becoming Nobody by Ram Dass, who was actually in lived in Maui for a long time, talks about the archetypes, right? So there's another layer where you start, now you're not completely absorbed in the personality, but you are, you're kind of focused on, well, a Libra is like this, a Scorpio is like this, and this
how
person's
fun.
like this.
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
astral plane.
This is great.
Okay.
The astral plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can dabble in that, and then after that, you turn it up a notch and you start connecting to the soul consciousness, where you see that beyond, we have different things that brought us. You asked about my history and how I came to this place in my life and what impacted my personality. But we all have these stories, right? We all have these stories. And I'm going to go back to when I was in, my first job postmasters was working with children and adolescents who were substance abuse, gang members, and sex offenders. And originally, I didn't want to work with the sex offenders because I thought, well, first, I think as my personality as you brought up Indian, I didn't want to talk about those things. I didn't feel comfortable at that age to talk about it at that age. And
The danger aspect of it too.
I didn't feel as endangered because it was so protected. There were staff, there was and we had walkie-talkies, and I actually had, when I would run groups, at least I'd have another guy. Remember one of them? He was great, Demetrius. But I'd always have somebody strong, like in the room. Usually, not always, but most of the times, yeah. So not in that sense. In more way, one was just my own uncomfortableness talking about sexuality, because that's not in Indian culture. That's not something we're very comfortable talking about, at least back then. And then the other thing was, there was a part of me judging them, right? Like,
you judge?
Unconsciously.
How dare you? What's wrong with you people? Come on, you belong over there.
Not in such a harsh. I didn't even realize there was my bias, right?
Yeah.
But I really said to my boss, I remember telling Jamie, like, it's not like I'm judging them. I just don't feel comfortable with that, or whatever I said. And but I ended up, I didn't run groups, but I did end up, they were in my cottage. I ended up working with them. And that's where I really got to, and just in general, the whole experience, I'm working with kids that are really, they would have ended up in jail. In fact, the place was created by a judge who saw their soul, saw beyond that these kids could be no other way, based on their history and based on their backgrounds.
Wow.
And these kids came from rough backgrounds or family dynamics, and which is amazing that you saw that. And working with these kids, I get that on an intellectual level, but as I worked more and more deeper with them, I felt it in my heart, like, wow, they could be no other way.
Wow.
And that's kind of like that's like a simplistic way of really saying the soul consciousness, right? You start meeting people, especially when you start meeting yourself there, and you feel very comfortable then with all your parts. You have judgmental parts, you have angry parts. I have parts that people, when I even share them, they'll be like, really? You look so innocent. You look so...
Yeah.
But no, we have really nasty parts inside of us.
Yes.
We don't like to admit it or look at them. But when you... And you don't want to sit there dwelling on them either, but when you have that loving awareness, you're not pushing it away either. You're not, like in Buddhist tradition, like craving avert. A big piece of Buddhist meditation is you're either craving something or trying to avert, get away from something. And now you're not trying to get away from it. You're bringing a loving awareness to it. You're understanding it.
So you're eliminating struggle, either for or against.
Yeah.
So like these bad parts.
Allowing.
Yeah. To like, well, okay. It's almost like that. Well,
yeah. Not a detached okay.
Oh, not a detached?
Not a completely detached. Oh, you can get to that level.
Yeah.
Sometimes like, oh, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, like,
But
yeah,
also-
I'm kind of a cynical guy. Oh well,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one step. You're accepting. That's one step, right?
That's good, son.
Once you start getting to know that part of you that's cynical, and this is what I do all day, is get to know And she loves you anyway.
Yeah.
Don't bring her into the mix. She just made you a good meal tonight, son. Don't bring my friend into
But it's lovely because she still loves you.
Oh, she's
right?
loving,
And that's
yeah.
that's like a soulmate, right? They
Right.
love you with all your goods and they accept you.
I just got a feeling of just like relief, you know.
I want to go there and just reach across the acacia table and give her a hug. With your matching red flask and your matching red shirt. No, anyway.
Well, that relief is what a lot of people, I don't know if you were genuinely feeling that.
No, I did. I felt like a relief.
Yeah, that it's okay to be that way.
Yeah.
It's okay, Arlie. It's okay.
And then when you hear more, when you start getting to know that part more intimately, it itself starts feeling more relaxed. It itself starts connecting to itself like in a new way. And it's funny, it itself starts wanting to take on a different role without an agenda. So we're really mindful of, so what you're really doing when you're in a session is you're almost mind mapping, and there are parts, here is one difference with the West and the East a little bit. Again, a generalization, it all depends, and, it's also intermixed, but where the West is more like analytical, intellectual, really in their heads. And so what we do is start shutting that part of the brain down. Not to shut it down, actually. That's not a nice way to put it. We actually ask permission, and we literally will ask the parts to relax. And gently ask if they're willing to relax, or even just maybe step on the sideline to be able to observe what's happening with the other parts. So we're activating more heart-centered parts to be able to connect with this part from that soul conscious space. So it's not like you're intellectualizing what, like, morality, you should do this, you should love, you should be this way. It's very heart, like very from the heart-centered place that you come. And those parts themselves, when they feel loved and accepted, that's all they want. That's all we all want, right? And different parts of our personalities want. So
yeah. So going back to helping people have access to this, or coaching them to do that. That's must be a really nice thing when you see people actually getting relief.
Yes.
Like they're so wound up, and then it's like, oh wow, it's really it's that easy, and you see them kind of. I have those feelings throughout the day.
Maybe I should work with you.
No, I mean the relief, like
It's
like, oh man, I wish I could help people,
experience that.
But then sometimes
I know what you.
What was that?
I wanna say something, but my wife's over there.
So,
like she's like, it's like detachment. It's almost like, it's like I'm just gonna totally detach. It's kind of like running away. Yeah, kind of like thing. And it's like, oh well, like I shouldn't say. I know people would go, I'm not gonna say names, but I can edit it out. I'm the editor.
Okay.
I can edit it in,
But I can feel the playful, loving energy between you two. It's cute. It's very sweet.
So talk about the layers, like how you was gonna get into it.
So soul consciousness is that one layer, right? And then or like the now it's like getting juicy because you're meeting. There's a great guy here that. Somebody I met through the Ramdas Association is Barry. He's a psychiatrist in Maui. And, so he practices kind of similar stuff, or, thinks in a similar holistic type of way. He practices psychotherapy, actually, not, he's not big on medication, but he was trained as a psychiatrist. I hope it's okay. I'm talking about him for him, but I'll ask permission. Well, with him, it was funny because we were meeting on that soul consciousness place, and I felt even Brian at times, that first time that we met, especially, there was like you do this already, and I can feel it sometimes but we're doing it.
Well, you just made it more aware, because I haven't.
To really stick with it, we have moments of it.
Yeah.
We're not always so connected to it.
Wouldn't that
we're absorbed with our personality. Yep.
Wouldn't that be impossible to be in that space all the time?
I wouldn't say impossible. I would say it's cultivating it. A lot of cultivating. But yes, I mean, Richard Schwartz will say yes. Like even Richard Schwartz has worked with the Dalai Lama. That was my teacher that first taught me this, and he said even the Dalai Lama has parts. You know, like we're human.
If the Dalai Lama I always had fantasies of leaving society, and I thought of society as like this, and I wanted to be outside here and pop in and out whenever I felt like, whenever it served my needs.
Yeah.
You know, I think if I wanted a lot of people.
You know, yeah. Then the rest of the time I'd be up in the mountains, you know, and then meditating, whatever, and being totally there all the time. But something about being in society that you can't, like you said, all the parts we have of ourselves. I personally feel that the reason that it is because we live with other people, and you gotta kind of get along. So like with all these religions, or not religions, but more ways of living to cope with being a human being and being around other human being, like what is it? I don't think Buddhism. Some people think Buddhism is a religion. I think it was more like a set of practices to do to live, you know, a pretty cool, uneventful, or not uneventful, but like less stressful kind of life. But is that kind of what you're talking about like being in that loving awareness as most as you?
You start bringing it to the parts of you that have the fear of others, right? And yeah, that's a big one for, especially even with the country, right? The country divided, and you know, red and blue, or in a lot of ways, and we have it that there is another. What I found with my spiritual practices, I've been trained in a lot of coaching, advanced coaching stuff and whatever, and I was telling Brian this as well. I see myself in everyone. And anything that I see myself resisting in the other person is a part of me that's not fully healed. And when
how's that?
Yeah, I like that.
When I bring loving awareness to that, and the part of me that even fears first, funny, sometimes I'll meet myself wherever I'm at. So I do the parts work on myself. Sometimes I work with others because it might be really a deep wound. So I need somebody to help me hold space to go to like what we call the exile in there, the primary emotion that I'm really afraid of, because you can get dysregulated too, right? So when I go towards the fear, and as the fear starts, I work with it, when I say work with it, it's more like bringing that loving awareness to it and get to know it directly, not analyze it, not try to fix it, no agenda, just an open heart. And when I can bring that space to it, I start seeing my own ego around it. I start seeing it it gives me space to look at myself more.
Wow.
And the parts I've maybe suppressed, maybe I seem really nice, but I have really angry parts too. And maybe to a nice person, and maybe I repress them because I'm afraid of my own angry parts, right? So you start really, you start loving everybody. And that's, Brian, that was something you wanted me to bring up.
Yes,
it's like, these gurus and these spiritual teachers and leaders, they talk about loving everybody. And, you can know that in your head. But really, as you start getting to know yourself, and that's where the journey of meditation, it's beyond just getting away from society, it's getting to know thyself from each layer of yourself. And that's really what I think spirituality, Buddhism, all the religions, really knowing thyself. And once you really get to know yourself really intimately, and there's a lot of layers, and you start loving all of it. You love everybody.
Wow.
And then you're in a state of non-resistance, right? And what's funny, this is a Ramdas quote, and a lot of different, spiritual leader coaches, teachers rather. And it's like, once you can let go of your, all the resistance or the things that you want or need, it's like everything just flows to you. Like you're in a state of flow. Like you don't even, because you don't need it. You don't want, you're just in that. There's no struggle like you were mentioning before.
Not even here.
You're making me want to play my flute now.
Please do. No, but it's just, we're on a different level.
Hey, continue.
Okay, he want to put, we're going to put humor inside.
Oh,
so.
I love it.
Go ahead.
Just music. No, continue. I'm
Go
saying
please.
about me. You're talking about how much
how much
Singing your
how much I want to.
Oh, I love it.
As the sound of air or comes into this room, my brother Arlie comes from Iao Valley.
Mahalo.
Oh, thank you. Wow, bravo.
Between the voice and the music. Oh, that was beautiful. I
Oh,
love that.
he's a beautiful human being.
Both. You both.
That was
And you too.
that wasn't rehearsed.
That was
just-
one take,
just
man.
totally-
Yeah, that was OT, one take, man. No, but so
that's why we call it the riff. Because we just kind of like
Throw stuff in there. It's cool.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Even though
about-
how serious it is,
Perfect.
and the knowledge is right there,
You need
him
that
and I
humor.
always have that humor aspect. But yeah, getting back to like you were saying about, I want you to give the examples so our people can see and hear about looking at the eye.
Oh, okay, yes.
That's the part of what, yeah.
So there's that soul consciousness space, right? And then beyond that, that's like a loving awareness, right? And in mindfulness, you can also be just awareness, like you were saying, but it's kind of, it can be, for me, a little too detached, right? And then there is a space of awareness. And this was, and that's what's known as pure consciousness, right? The state of pure consciousness. And I fumbled. I mean, I was I've learned about it. I've been curious about it, but I fumbled upon it very accidentally. One of my friends I had not seen for 9 years got in touch with me, seeing my Facebook post or something, and saying, "You've become really spiritual. I see that, and let's connect. I've gone through my own journey." And we both had done Vipassana, 10-day meditations, like the 10-day Vipassana, like the Goenkaji Vipassana meditations. That was in Shelburne, Massachusetts. It's it's intense. Sometimes you want to run away.
10 days of the intense meditation with a...
And you really are detached. That's like it's a very, not a detached, it's maybe still the wrong word, but you're just that awareness. It's not a loving, or it's just awareness. And love comes naturally through it, but it's just, you're becoming aware of, in the beginning, you're doing just Anapana meditation, which is breath awareness. You're bringing your focus back to the breath. And you're just being the awareness of that. Thoughts will come and go, and you're letting the thoughts come and go. You have no access to reading. There's no written things. You have no, except for very basic rules for everybody in the place. And then your cell phones are gone. Everything is gone. So
how does that, you come out after the 10 days to come back into that circle of society?
When I did it the first time, it was November 2015, and that was when the Parisian attacks happened. And I found out that my friends had placed themselves safe, and so I found out that the Parisian attacks had happened. Otherwise, we didn't know, because we're in meditation, right? We're in deep meditation. And when I came out of it, it's like you just have you understand. Like I remember feeling like there was love for the victims and their families, and there was love for the terrorists too. Like it's almost like you have this, I don't know if you've seen the movie Lucy.
Yeah.
You have seen the movie Lucy. Okay, so at the end, have you seen the movie Lucy? Okay, so at the end of the movie, before she becomes that blackness, right? Mm-hmm. She, like, all of history from like when we were monkeys and apes and before, like all of that kind of flashes by you, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like that, except you're not actually having that whole flashback, but you're embodying it. Like you get how this terrorist ended up the way that he did. Mm. So there's no like hate or like this is right or wrong. Or that there's just love and just pouring out of your heart. Like you're just like, you want to just love. And
wow.
you're free. And that lasts for like 2 weeks.
It lasts for 2 weeks until the world grabs you and shakes you back to.
You're still never the same.
Yeah.
You try to keep up the practice, but yes, you try to keep up. You're still never the same. You bring it to you, and especially if you, like, I recall that, and it brings me back there.
Oh, that's
even
good.
With my body,
That's
like
good,
I feel
yeah.
it. So it's remembering that. It's doing the practice, having some kind of spiritual practice that keeps you in that.
Yeah. Do you feel that's why there are shamans and there are monks and there are people who we look at, it's like, wow, what are those guys doing up in the mountain all day, chanting and living up there and not knowing what's going down? I can see the joy they're probably experiencing, and being one with the universe, and all that stuff, right?
What's mind blowing about when you're talking about love? You can look at
and that's for us down here,
like a sex offender, what have you. You can look at them and you just have pure love, because you don't really know how they got there, but you have already accomplished this in yourself, that you're. The way you explain it to me, with the Nirvana stuff, and
I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get to that in a second. I think I'm
it's
prepping to it, but you really want me to go there. So with sex offenders and with different walks of life of people, when you start breaking it down to our neural and our impulses, right? So we work as therapists. We also work with people's. We work with our own. We have our own impulses. Everybody has their own impulses. You actually start becoming. You understand. You have compassion. You also kind of have gratitude, like, oh, okay, I've transcended that. I've evolved that at this point, right? And let me hold space so that this person can also evolve that, right? That's the goal. So you're just holding space. I wanted to quickly comment, even with the shamans, and I've had some experiences with that, and I really, and one of my teachers, actually, the Transpersonal Emdr, who I learned Transpersonal Emdr from. And that's kind of psycho-spiritual EMDR. Irene Siegel, she worked with shamans directly too, and got very, very trained with shamans. I think actually she also came to Hawaii. I could be wrong, but yeah. But my point is, even they are experiencing that love and bliss. They're also being with all these other parts that we talked about. So they're feeling it's like they've also gone through. And we all, like the dark night of the soul, where you're feeling very intense feelings. So even when you're bringing loving awareness, you're bringing it to the parts you don't want to feel. So even though, and that transforms it. It's no longer the same, but we hide our wounds.
Yeah. Well, but I was thinking more of, people who were raised and born, like, in China. Some families send their children to go very young, and so very little information about how it was to be like I hate to say like a regular human being, but because I think of like monks and shamans and stuff as outside of the circle of society. They're like here somewhere, and they have access to all these secrets and these methods and all these skills and stuff. But what's good for us, the common people, the people who have to deal with being in the world, get access through the practices that you do, and kind of relieve some of the troubles of the trauma of being here, and and the practice of it is good, because I practice some of these things, hodgepodge, a little bit of that, Taoism, some Buddhism there, some, Christianity, and some breathing exercises, some yoga over there, and they kind of like mashing it together, Yeah. And I think that's more and more as time goes by, these ancient or not so ancient and more modern kind of techniques are going to be helping a lot of people as this world gets kind of goes on the path that it's going,
Yeah. It's quite incredible how much it's I mean, the whole concept of shamanism now is we're getting trained in it very officially. I was really passionate about just wherever I quit my job when I was in 2014 to go to India. When I started learning all this stuff, I was like, okay, this is the psych realm. This is great, but there is more. And I went to study yoga, meditation, and pranayama in India.
Oh.
And then I went to Costa Rica, and it was more of an official place, and it's more the shamans working with psychedelics. Learned about that at the Life Advancement Center. So, you know, it's like that. I feel like, whoa, like that I could have access to all this coming from the West. I mean, it was from India, but I've been most of my life in the West.
Okay, so, and New Jersey, right?
Jersey, yeah.
Wow. And I'm not very well traveled. Obviously, you went all over the planet, and I don't know. Have you traveled much?
Just New York, California, just,
so
United States.
He's gonna go to India soon. He told me.
Florida. Yeah, Florida was.
That's another island.
Yeah, different. A lot of alligators, albino alligators.
I don't know, I've never been.
No, that's the first time I see the 1,000-pound alligator.
So where can we see Salony, or what do you have for travel to? Like, are you planning any great like trip to another country, or are you just kind of enjoying Maui right now?
Brian's laughing because I was right now. I'm just in such a state that
Are you a gypsy?
I'm kind of, right now. I didn't know where I was sleeping tonight. Like
what?
I was sorting out. So I was
that's gypsy
house
living.
Sitting. Yeah, I was house sitting my friend, like the two friends that I discovered I had in Lahaina. Is actually somebody my sister did her residency with, but never met them before, but got quite close to them. They live out in Lahaina and have a farm with 12 or 18 chickens and roosters.
Oh, cool.
And cats.
Monocs. Yeah, a lot of monocs.
Yeah. And I've never ever had a pet in my life. I used to be afraid of dogs and cats. Well, dogs especially.
So you didn't travel to outside of the United States. You never did have a pet.
Yeah. And I've been house sitting for them and taking care of this place. And today they were coming back, and I was like sorting out if I should go back home, because I've a very elaborate family back in New Jersey, and they're really like, all right, especially after this fire, even though it wasn't, it didn't affect me directly, but they're like, just come home already. And so I was like thinking for them, maybe I'll come home. Then I was thinking maybe my California trip. I know the numbers in COVID are not that great. A lot of my friends are in Miami. They went down. It was easier just to go from New Jersey to Miami. My sister's there for New Year's too, so I was thinking that. So, but then I just left it to spirit, I guess.
Wow.
No, that's awesome,
I'm
man.
here.
So we're talking about.
You're talking about I'm just a butterfly. I'm gonna fly far away.
Wow.
Yay.
That's incredible.
Yeah, man.
And you know what? It makes sense. It kind of makes sense.
I dig it, man.
But I mean that. Like, you don't know where you're gonna stay tonight, kind of thing. That's incredible, and it's
now I do, but
good.
A little planning.
Good. So, New Jersey is cold right now, right?
New Jersey is cold right now.
Yeah,
very cold.
40 below zero. I think.
Is it 40 below over there now?
Must be.
I mean, like
it goes
low.
to it's 20s, 30s.
Oh yeah, it goes
30s,
low, man.
Me and Kuya have friends in Edmonton, in Canada, and they always laugh at us when we show them pictures. Like, this time is kind of like supposed to be our Maui winter.
Yeah.
And then what we do is, you know, people wear slippers right over here, so you can tell he's getting winter because then you put your socks and wearing slippers. And then when I tell him, hey man, it's cold over here, and he says, I want to slap you.
Wait, where are you talking about it? I mean, I'm having the same reaction. I'm like, where is it cold?
Oh, in Wailuku.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lahaina is a little warmer. It's like, at night it gets chilly.
Yeah. So, but I guess you get used to the temperature once you're there for a while.
I still say I'm from India. I still haven't 100% gotten used to the winters, but you get tired of it.
Over there, it's very hot in India, right?
India's really hot.
Yeah.
So here's my predicament. I feel too hot in the summers in India, too cold in the summer.
Well, at least you have options, you know. And then, what do you think about? How do you feel about traveling, like as far as airports and stuff? You would have no problem with just buying a ticket and heading where you got to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I think we learned that early on, I guess, because we used to travel back home. We missed would go back to India. So we learned, and those were 15-hour. Back then, actually, it was like 22-hour flights. Now they're 15-hour flights.
Wow.
So there would be a mid-stop in London usually, but we got used to fly fairly early. Yeah.
Do you feel I know there's with this kind of this method, I don't know what else to call it,
Love method?
Yeah, that
Loving awareness.
it's hard, loving awareness,
Energy.
it's hard to kind of like encapsulate it in one thing or one conversation, because it touches on so many different veins, and it goes out. Could you, like, because we're getting to that hour where we're gonna kind of start closing
you
the
really
show.
want me to talk about one thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, because
Sorry, I keep digressing.
No.
That's me.
I
And
just kind of put it on track, because it's really important for perception. And
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep.
So that he's pointing to the last level of pure consciousness,
Okay.
right? So my friend did a meditation. This is the friend that had done the Vipassana. I think we got sidetracked, but yeah. And he, at some point while we were talking, we were literally at like a veganized second floor restaurant in New Brunswick, and we're talking. He's not even telling me he's going to do a meditation. He's just sharing that this guru or Swami in New York City had taught him this method, if you will. And so he starts with, he brings a spoon in front of me, and he says, and I'm actually literally going to do this, and it's kind of like the spoon is the object, right? This is an object in front of me, and I'm observing it through my eyes, and I'm the subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the subject observing the object, which is the spoon. And now, if you take the spoon away and you go, the object is your eyes, and how are you like observing through your eyes? How do you know you have eyes even, right? It's your mind that's interpreting from the eyes, right? And you know that you have eyes. You're aware of your eyes. So the mind is the subject, the eyes are the object, right? And if you take it a little further, this is kind of going to mindfulness, is who's aware of the mind and the way the mind is thinking and interpreting. And you human beings have the capacity to be aware of how the mind is thinking. You have the ability to notice when you are being judgmental, or when you are being, what was it that you said, you be cynical? Like you can watch the mind, what it does as it's doing it, right? And so you're the subject, the mind is the object. You're the awareness, and the mind is the object. And now, so what my friend said literally after that, and he used his finger and he goes, and now we're at subject is the mind, and we are object is the mind, subject is the awareness. And he said, who's aware of that? And I was out of my body. There was no experience to report, because you're out of your body, you're out of your senses. The only thing is when he continued at some point speaking, and I wasn't trying to get out of my body. What I did is become aware of awareness, and I looked there, and I was meditating. So I was right there, and I put my attention to that, and I became that.
Oh, how
what
cool.
I put my attention to.
Were your eyes closed?
No, they were, because the last thing I remember, and that's why I go back. The last thing I remember back in my body was him doing, and who's aware of that, and boom, I'm out.
Wow.
And it lasted like, I don't know, maybe a minute or so.
Like how out were you? Like out? Because I was, when you were explaining this, I kind of was out already, but I was like here. My eyes were open, but I was here.
Yes.
Kind of here.
Your awareness. You got to the awareness level.
Yeah,
yes.
but I wasn't like out, like I don't.
Out of your body.
Everything went black.
Yeah.
No.
And that's it.
Oh,
and
okay.
Nothing, darkness, everything. And you are, there's nothing. You're everything and you're nothing. And when you come back to the body, so there's no human experience, right? And that's what nirvana, mukti, you know, in Buddhism, nirvana, in Hinduism, mukti is really about. You're liberated. And then you come back to your body.
That's why I wanted you to really listen to this.
You come back to your body. And that was when that was just my attention came back when he started, pause for a bit, and then he started talking again. And I was like, shh, and I did this also. And that's so great because I wanted to go back there. Just the image of what we're seeing right here. And I was like, no, I want to go back, right? Kind of went into craving now.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, I didn't understand the experience. I just wanted to cry. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to cry. Like, and my whole body just felt like,
it seems like a really good practice because can you do that when you want to go through that process, that little exercise?
I'm aspiring to do that.
Okay.
It's hard to get to.
Okay, because you know what that makes me sound like makes me think of is when sports at a high level, they call it the zone.
Yeah.
Where no matter where you are and you just throw it up and it goes in the basket.
You're in flow states. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that, but not really.
Yeah.
It's touching on the same kind of thing.
Yeah. You're in a flow state. Yeah.
And then I
but
experience.
This is beyond your body.
It's beyond.
You're no longer in your physical body.
You're not even here, Arlie. Right. You're invisible.
You're kind of everything and nothing.
There.
And you come back to your body and you just want to cry. There's bliss. And
that's true bliss. Also, remember when you was telling me?
Yeah.
What is true bliss, Brian? And you said that. You explained that.
And that's like all the survival parts, like the instinct, all of that releases. And there's like this experience of like there's a little bit of like, not mourning, I want to say, like in a beautiful way, like, wow. I kind of want to curse and I say like, what the F? Like we are all of this. We think we are this and we are striving and surviving and all this stuff for nothing. This means nothing.
Right.
Yeah, that comes down to nothing.
And it just, and everything releases. All those survival things just release.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're like, and it's almost like a divine comedy. Like you want to laugh. Like it's so silly that you've been like striving. This is not it.
What's amazing to me is that you got to touch on that from this almost like a something you could write down. Okay, think this and then do that. Now think of this. Now think. So it's almost like an actual manual on how to touch on this idea and maybe experience something, or somebody's like, "What do you mean? The subject is my eyeball and I mean, what do you mean?" And then so you kind of already lose it because you're not really involved in trying to
get it.
Yeah.
But just going through the steps, you have to really, really listen and visualize, and it's nothing like okay, Carly, count to 10.
Yeah.
We know where 5 is in your mind. You know where 7 is. Like 3 more steps to 10.
But I mean,
But that's the way you explain things. It's you got to really. There's a lot of visualization.
To touch on something that grand, and to have like a ABCD
understanding
to try it. Is huge.
The truth
that exercise.
The truth that comes from Swami taught him. It's in the Vedas. It's actually in the Vedas. And I asked my friend to send it to me, and it wasn't quite exactly what I told you. Is what he did, what I felt, or my memory of it at least that I can recollect. It's a little bit different in the Vedas, but it actually is a practice from the Vedas that teaches that. And I tried to do it with him again, but I only tried it one more time. We only tried one more. I know too much. I know that I'm going to now, when you're that was very spontaneous. When you're trying to do it, you're creating neural networks of trying to get somewhere and trying to do it. So I could notice that, let it go, and then I still practice awareness of awareness. I could get to a certain level of state of being awareness of awareness, but not the state of pure consciousness. And when so after that, I wasn't able to get to the complete out of my body, like where it's, Ram Dass describes this as experiencing it, the level after soul consciousness is awareness of awareness. And then you are in itself. There's nothing. And that's what the Buddhists call it as nirvana, right?
Okay.
With awareness of awareness, you can get to those states. And there is somebody that practices or teaches this. I don't know if you've heard of Joe Dispenza.
No.
He's he integrates neuroscience and psychology and spirituality, all of that. You can YouTube him. There's a lot of stuff on him and talks about the quantum field. And so in soul consciousness, that type of work that we're doing, and this is legit science. And so they show we study it to be that soul awareness is half wave, half particle. And pure consciousness is that complete quantum field, right? That awareness, which everything arises. So they've done a lot of incredible studies, and I was part of one of his studies as a participant in the studies recently, and I want to experience it directly to understand. And I did do his meditations. I like them, and they did get me to I remember I was doing it at Sugar Beach when I was staying at Sugar Beach last month, and I just remember coming out of the it's just guiding awareness to awareness. And I never heard of it that way, aside from me kind of seeing it. But now it's kind of, once you experience something, I hear Ram Dass talking about it like that too. I hear him, and it is really just that simple. It's not so complicated. It's just awareness of awareness is where you're going.
So what is the, you hear things about like when they're ready to, just getting ready to die, and whatever they experience, as soon as the lights go off, as soon as the heart stops beating, whatever that is,
Consciousness.
So what would, other than having a good feeling and being a loving practice, what would be the goal of like really striving to have that in this, while we're alive and living and moving around and going to work? And
that's a great question.
You know, it feels good, but other than that, the ultimate practice of doing it, is that almost become like a drug now, or what do you call it, addiction to get that feeling again? And it's not hurting nobody, right? But then does that separate you from being able to function in society and stuff?
The goal is that you actually naturally become a loving person more and more. You meet people at the soul consciousness level, so you start loving them. So that's with the soul awareness. With the pure consciousness, you feel unlimited, and you can. So the practices Joe Dispenza does is you can actually create anything outside of that. So it's really knowing your true nature, and you really want to practicing it. Having a daily practice is about being able to incorporate it in your daily life, knowing who you are, rather than walking around just as your personality, Salony as her personality, or my personality will resist a lot of things. My personality would not have been with those cats, or I was scared of them, right? But I can transcend those things, and you start being able to be with more and more things instead of living your life resisting. Your heart opens up. You're open. You're free. And with the Joe Dispenza stuff, you can then create whatever you can play. You can it's great. It gives you freedom. It gives you space.
Wow, that is incredible. I like that. So there's more. In other words, much more.
There's a lot.
And my hope is that everybody experiences that. Like right now, if any experiences I've had where I felt like any near-death experiences I've ever had, my first worry has always been, if anything happens, my parents would be devastated, right? Like I don't even care about I know too much about this to care about my own death. And there's spiritual practices that I do also to really be okay with that. And that's another thing that comes out of this. You know, you're not your body or you're fit in this life form, right? You know you're that. So you're less afraid of it. When people die, you less become afraid of it. You still have parts that mourn in your physical body, right? You have those emotions, but there's so much more spaciousness around it that you don't get caught in it. And what my wish, and so I'm really glad Brian kept insisting that we went back to this, is, I mean, I would want everybody to experience it at least once, because you also feel that you are one. That your true nature, as they say, that field is it's all encompassing. It's everything. You are everything. You love everything. You want to treat the Mother Earth. You are that. You want to like treat it well, which, by the way, I think is incredible how Hawaiians really, you know, the shamanic culture and Hawaiians really take care of the nature aspect of things.
What I was talking about with Khalil.
Like that. Wow. So, but for grieving during COVID too, my hope is that people, again, in their own process, going through their own process, but be able to know that there's something beyond our physical bodies, even, you know, and grieve by all means. And you're still going to miss the person, and you're still going to have all that. And that's something I would really want my parents to. It's just this desire that my parents experience this once in their lifetime, at least once, so they know I am that. You don't have to grieve.
Are you gonna go home for a visit and kind of guide them through a little practice?
I have to be able to go there regularly. I'm still working on developing my own thing, and you know, but they are, you know, I do work with them on a soul conscious level and all of that. You know,
that's
we
nice.
do integrate that
that's
stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're getting on the hour and a half,
the dark side
of time, and you know, time is
everything, right?
We're fun,
But
we want to thank you.
We can't possibly get all of this information from an hour and a half.
This was a great opening. You know, hopefully we can have
is there a chance that you could, I mean, we never know where you're going to be tomorrow. You may be in Chile or...
I've decided for a month I'm going to be in Hawaii.
So we have one more. We can have one more time that you come. We can continue this, and
that'd be great. Would you be up for that? Okay.
I'm definitely. I want to thank you guys for having me here, and really, you know, I was a little bit nervous.
Everybody says that. Why? It's like, what are we gonna do?
We're so intimidating there. No, like we're saying, Salony, this was a great way to end the year.
Yes.
You know, because this is our last episode for the year. Kohia's was last week, so we got the ladies closing out our year.
Yes.
So we're super happy and
thankful. We're very thankful.
Yeah, we're blessed.
Likewise, I'm grateful blessed. You guys made it so much fun and interactive.
Oh,
and you were present, and you were there, and you just your energies and your wife's energy was great. So thank you.
One other thing, how like I was trying to find your info.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know. So if people need your help, like I don't know how active you are in like
social media or anything.
Yeah, and
do you do it through Zoom, right? Or
so I practice through Zoom. Yeah. It's Evolving Mind, Body, Spirit.
Evolving. Okay, I'm gonna write.
You feel good?
I'm ready to have some soup. How about you?
So let's put the music. Let's say our goodbyes. Mahalo. All right.
For coming on the
Happy New Year, everybody. 2020. See you guys next year.
Aloha.
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 All right.
Thank you guys. That was